The High Court in Pretoria has set aside the 5 billion rand Thuja Capital-UIF contract. The court has also ordered Thuja owner Mthunzi Mdwaba to refrain from uttering defamatory corruption allegations against Labour and Employment Minister Thulas Nxesi. Nxesi approached the courts on an urgent basis in November 2023 to set aside the contract. Well, to discuss the matter further, I'm joined by my colleague, economics reporter Katlego, who's been tracking the story for us. Very good afternoon, Katlego. So we know that you've been covering this case for the longest while, and of course, this is quite an important ruling. So what does this mean now?
Well, we've been on this story since last year when Minister Thulas Nxesi around November approached the courts to, on an urgent basis, just set the contract aside, this being the 5 billion rand Thuja Capital contract with the UIF. At the center of what has been happening here is the issue of unemployment, the crisis that we have here at home, whereby this contract was meant to ensure that it rolls out programs that would ensure that young people are accommodated and they form part of the greater economy. So it was put on a halt by the minister because at the center of where we find ourselves was him saying it did not follow the Public Finance Management Act, the PFMA. It was at the center of where we find ourselves. But also, when you look at it, he said there was no bidding process that was done and things were not, as they should, where this particular contract is concerned. We see Mr. Mthunzi Mdwaba taking exception with what the minister had done to try and set this contract aside. So he's been defending himself in court to ensure that at least the court give him the green light where this contract is concerned. He has maintained for the longest of time that everything has been done above board, but also what we've seen come out of this particular issue was the issue of the bribery allegations that he's made against the ministers, I think 3 ministers and the ANC Secretary General, whereby they basically outright denied these allegations made by Mr. Mthunzi Mdwaba. Some of them even saying that they're pushing to litigate against where this particular issue is concerned. He alleged that they sought bribe, so that they can see this contract through. They wanted a cut of this particular 5 billion rand, and he says when he refused, that's when he was removed from his position here, and he feels that he's being victimized, targeted by the minister, and there's some vendetta that he's been pushing against him. But this was argued in the court at length, Nompu, by Advocate Thabani Masuku. He was representing the minister in this particular case, and he went at length to argue issues of procedure, to say that at the end of the day, even if the minister has an issue against you, what we need to see is relevant steps that should have been followed in this regard. Also, what came out that was interesting was that at the time when this contract came about, Mr. Mthunzi Mdwaba was at the helm of Productivity South Africa. Productivity South Africa working with the UIF, and this is how the contract then came about. And there was an issue of conflict of interest where this is concerned. It was argued in the courts, and he seems to believe that no, everything was done above board and there was no conflict of interest or clashes with his role there at Productivity South Africa and what he was going to be doing as the CEO of Thuja. So the court really clarifying to say that, it was not legal for him to go about it in that particular sense.
So now, the bribery allegations he's made, it's now his word against theirs, because now the court has basically made the whole thing a damp squid, because they've said, set this thing aside. So what is he saying? Have you spoken to him since the judgment?
Well, I know very well that we've been trying to get hold of him. I'm going to be speaking to him. And as the public broadcaster, we've also reached out to him to give us a right of reply because he was not in court in person. And what he said, at least maybe from the X post, I had broke the story on X, as part of our community there, to give them a sense of what is happening in the courts. And we see a lot of people, reposting it. And Mr. Mdwaba himself replied to that X to say that, more or less this was expected. He casted aspersions against the judge as well. This was not new because even in the court, during one of the processes earlier this year, he did take to the stand and he was talking about how the judge is biased in this case, this being acting judge Japie Maritz. and he was saying that the judge is compromised. At some point, we thought he would apply for the judge to be recused. Instead, at that point in time, they chose to walk out of the court, and that was seen as a missed opportunity. At the same time, there was a point during the court proceedings whereby he changed his legal team, and they've taken exception, the court taking exception with this particular issue to say that it looks like it's a delayed tactic from his end. There was an interlocutory order that he also applied for, saying that the ministry was denying him access to some of the documents that they had built their case on, one of them being a forensic report, whereby the ministry instituted a forensic report last year to look into this matter. The results came out and they found against Mr. Mdwaba, but he was saying that they want access to all of these documents so they can argue their case. He's indicated that this is far from over, Nompu. He's indicated in that post that he's going to be appealing this order, this judgment that was handed down today. But we see just a moment ago the ministry releasing a statement as well, welcoming the judgment, and the minister just more or less looking forward to Mr. Mdwaba refraining from casting those aspersions of him being corrupt. So it remains to be seen where he will take this, whether it's going to go to the Supreme Court of Appeal, where his options that are available right now. But I suspect as well that he's consulting with his legal team, that he's got a new one that will give him a sense of where to from here.
A lot going on there. Thank you very much, my colleague there, Katlego Lekhodi.